What's up, everybody? Let's begin.
Lose! I don't lose! I win! I win! That's my job! That's what I do! There is no tomorrow!
Focus on what you're doing. Get better at what you're doing. Everything else is a complete waste of time.
It's not over until I win!
All right. Welcome once again. The weekly candle just closed, and it seems there's a slight pump into the weekly open, which is good, positive. Talked about the momentum and strength in the price being absent in the last couple of videos. And this new weekly candle that has just opened, it's pumping the daily at present, which is great. Absolutely great. Coming back to the weekly, yeah, pretty much in that range on the underside of the 50-week moving average. This candle is the weekly candle which closed just now, and on the weekly open, we currently are getting some momentum and some pump. Let's go on to the 4-hour chart. There you go. Very weak consolidation around these levels. Basically lack of strength, but then this candle here is finding some momentum. Let's see if it's able to sustain itself. If I go back onto the daily, I said in yesterday's video, this box right here is the first test. So that's in conjunction with the 50-week, apologies, not the 50-week, but the 50-day moving average. So price attempting to test the 50 daily average on the daily time frame, and then this should provide some sort of resistance on the 4-hour. So from a strength standpoint, want to see few closes of the 4-hour candles on top of that price box here, right? And then see if price is able to establish this as support before making its attempt to 93 and 95k. If that happens, brilliant, but more often than not, the first attempt in this strong downtrend to test the 50-day moving average usually results in rejection. So kiss the 50-day moving average, hold support of the box, see if it materializes in terms of continuation of strength. But you can see the price at this point is reaching its decision point. So whether it's this candle, whether it's the next week's candle, but the price is about to kiss this downtrend line on the weekly. So a reaction of the price onto the downtrend will be interesting. And we've already marked out a likely scenario, right, where it's the swing failure pattern that I'm referencing to. So again, to draw it out, kiss this downtrend, yeah, but maybe get rejected, and then eventually you break this, go back up, something on those lines, right? But effectively, given how weak the price consolidation has been thus far, unless obviously price is able to break above the 50-day on the daily, and on the 4-hour chart is able to establish this box into support, then that increases the probability that we may not get that swing failure pattern, and we may just start to find strength and stabilize the price, and then make that grind upwards towards testing some of these key resistances around October 10th low. So that's That's what I'm seeing and noticing on the weekly and on the daily. But on the weekly, it's good to see that the candle has started off with a pump, right? And the RSI almost kissed this support box, but has been sustaining itself above it. So good. The levels on the RSI on the momentum effectively have been on the extreme. So all positive in that regards. Just in for context, the price is yet to test the 50-week moving average. The 50-week currently is at $101,000. So even in the event that this bounce, whether it happens from the current price point and there's a continuation of strength and it does a retest of the 50 moving average from here, or there is that swing failure pattern that I talked about and then it finds the strength and then there is that relief rally to test the 50-week moving average. Turning the 50-week moving average into support is where the decision point would, from a moving average and momentum standpoint, would be whether that rally turns out to be a relief rally or whether it actually goes on to make the bull scenario come to fruition and Bitcoin makes the new all-time highs. For reference, this band here is the 200-week moving average, which currently stands at $57,000. The lower end of that is about almost $54,000, referencing to this block of consolidation. So this is where your kind of concluding points or reference points in terms of data points. There's this block of consolidation in terms of support, and then the 200 is hovering around the same levels, and these are the levels which I've marked out should there be a failure in the rally from this resistance of around 95k, and there's a breakdown, and in case the swing failure pattern doesn't materialize itself, meaning if the price breaks and breaches this level of 74k, and when the retest happens it finds rejection, then the likely trade is this long bread. At that point I would be expecting the price to make its way towards this point. 200-week moving average may provide that support of kind of front running, and price may or may not get into this zone, and the 200-week moving average might just be the support at that point. We'll see how and with what momentum, but those are all different scenarios, but the point of reference there was we have already marked those scenarios out. So in preparedness, we've marked that out as well. What else? So you've got the 50 moving average, you've got the 200-week moving average. The weekly candle has opened with strength, it's pumping. For people who have not been around in crypto, this is your usual kind of fuckery as well, to use the word, where you find these kind of weekly candle pumps, but then they just die off when the US market opens on Mondays, and usually on Monday and Tuesday you kind of see if the pump in crypto during the weekly open fades off or does it continue. So the downtrend as of now is still intact. The price is still under the 50-week moving average, weak consolidating in a weak manner, I would say. So yeah, quite far, but need to keep an eye on the 4-hour time frame to see whether price on the back of that strength and momentum continues to move above. It's testing its it just tested the 200 moving average on the 4-hour and has briefly been kind of getting the resistance. So yeah, on on the lower end time frames, 4 hours, it needs to get above it. This is currently at about $89,000. So covered the 4 hour, covered the daily. On the daily, it's the 50-day moving average. On the weekly, it's the 50-week moving average. From a structure standpoint, $89,000, $93,000 is the resistance, this box and this box. The more likely scenario that I'm looking for is the swing failure pattern to breach the 74K, get rejected here, breach 74K, and then go towards that relief rally and see how the reaction of that rally is on the 50-week moving average at that point, which would then determine whatever different scenarios we have laid out. Another kind of bullish thing, as you can see, the Kumo is bullish, right? So from an Ichimoku standpoint as well, it's positive at this point. RSI to the extreme lows should find its way back up towards the highs. That's what it is on the weekly at present. On ETH, I was looking at ETH earlier, a couple of hours back, and how should I put it? What the ETH chart is telling is not in sync with what many people are saying. Bitcoin and bear market, and likely you get that bear scenario going forward. It's not in sync. The dominance is telling a different story. ETH Bitcoin is telling a different story. If this comes to fruition, right, I'm on the monthly, but let me draw your attention to this. That's an inverse head and shoulders pattern. It's happening on critical levels. The RSI is in sync. So an inverse head and shoulders pattern is a bullish pattern. It indicates reversals, right? So your price as well as the RSI on ETH on the monthly is bullish, to say the least. Extremely bullish. ETH BTC making a V-shape formation on the RSI, knocking on the doors of this trend line, holding the support of this 3-month order block. ETH BTC is telling that there is strength, and the chart is kind of primed for more upward momentum, and that will only happen. And for that to happen, either Bitcoin needs to be topped out. So you assume Bitcoin has stopped at recent highs, which is at about what? Almost $125,000, right? So either Bitcoin has stopped and goes sideways, and at that point, ETH BTC, ETH USD, they kind of find their momentum. ETH leads the rally on the alts, and few select alts make all-time highs and goes beyond their prior all-time highs. Or Bitcoin itself goes on to make new all-time highs from 74K onwards. That's the bottom. That's the kind of failure on the swing pattern that I talked about. Reclaim that and then mark your way upwards towards the 50-week moving average and converts that into support, and then forms whatever is the high number around 150, 40, 60. My range is 140 to 160 at the bare minimum if Bitcoin was to breach its levels of 125K and go to the new all-time highs. So in either of those two scenarios, the charts are telling that ETH is kind of setting itself up for an upward move. And if ETH goes, the select few alts who have the strength against BTC and against ETH are kind of make sense where they go with it as well at some point. Coming back briefly on CRV, weekly, that's a very healthy weekly candle that just closed on this accumulation box. So ETH is, the chart is primed, right? And CRV similarly making a V-shape formation on the RSI, getting a good reaction from the range lows of this accumulation zone. The divergence that I talked about on previous occasions kind of in play as well, and these are divergence though on the daily, but still it's the number of days effectively, right? There you go. So got the reaction that I was expecting from those range lows on the accumulation box. More interestingly, it's testing the 50-day moving average on the daily. So let's see if it's able to flip the 50-day into support. And if that does, the first target would be this weekly SNR, which is currently at about 76. But I would be looking in the first instance for price to make its next attempt on $1 and change. So I'm not going to go and do a deep dive on CRV, but just wanted to bring up CRV post the weekly close to show that it's found its positive traction with regards to price. ETH BTC looking positive, ETH USD looking positive, CRV finding good reaction from the price levels that I bid on. BTC Gold, I didn't realize it the other day when I made the video, but actually on this chart, the price breached the 200-week moving average. The 200-week moving average is usually seen as a level of key resistance or key support, and the price having breached that level indicates that BTC against gold is slowly inching towards its capitulation price point. We've marked out the levels. That capitulation could be this price pivot, or it could be this price pivot, which isn't that far. 15-16% I think was the number. What else? Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to cover. The 50-week again on BTC is 101K. The 200-week moving average is 57K. Weekly has just opened with good momentum. Needs to see if it can sustain that momentum on the 4-hour, and in the first instance, see how the price reacts to the 50-day average. If it gets rejected on the 50-day average, fine. It's the lower end of this band, and in that instance where I would expect it to find support. So price action needs to develop for any of those to get confirmations in terms of the assumptions and the probabilities of different scenarios. But I would be, at this point again, giving more weightage in terms strongly on probabilities that the price gets rejected from the 50-day band. The reaction from the 50-day and this trend line kind of results in the swing failure pattern, or at the bare minimum coming back to bottom end of this price box, and then see what the reaction is, and then hopefully go and make that attempt on the 50-week moving average. More effectively, it's this October 10 low, I think, which will be a key pivot from a price standpoint for price to see what reaction it gets. that's all I wanted to cover. Until next time, cheers.